No, we don't have any classes. But you guys can take them off like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It says whichever.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you so much.
You have a picture over there that has the powerful beginning stuff behind you.
On the wall?
Yeah, you can take a picture. It looks like you did a red carpet event. Oh. So if you guys wanted like an individual picture over there to look like you did like a red carpet thing, just stand on your tippy toes and have like a powerful beginning 25 hours thing over there. There you go. I attempt to make it look cute. Oh, you guys should.
I like it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right. Where are we? Where are we? Ruby?
Like your bag is.
Oh, yeah.
I know I hate to do it. Sound good.
Where is this?
Yeah, I am. I just.
Do you guys have those photos done? Photographer, so it looks like you have a backdrop. The photo, so it looks like you have a red carpet backdrop. Oh, take your. Just cover the off backdrop.
Yes, we got you.
She's here.
Hi.
We got custodian. We got the podium pictures of you.
Okay.
Hi, Miss Sullivan. Miss Sullivan. Are you ready? You ready? Yes. Hi, Miss Sullivan. Can you give me one moment? We need to take two pictures, and then we'll be right with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I love that you have a coach. So we have another virtual speaker. Thank you so much. You did a great job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, let me start my video. All right. So our next speaker is virtual, and Erica, I believe you're doing her introduction. Oh, right.
In advance. Oh, this is my phone. No. Oh, yeah. Do you want a picture? Okay.
We're almost there.
My name is Erica Moody, and as a writer and editor, I'm honored to introduce Margaret Sullivan. Margaret Sullivan is the media columnist for the Washington Post, where she writes twice a week on topics ranging from R. Kelly to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Facebook. She grew up in Buffalo, New York, and spent most of her career at her hometown newspaper, Buffalo News. Started there as a summer intern and eventually became the first woman editor-in-chief. She is the mother of a son and a daughter, both working in public defender's office. Margaret is based in New York City and previously worked at the New York Times. Strong believer in women reaching their greatest potential. Welcome, Margaret.
Hey, Margaret, we're traveling. We've had a little technical difficulty. Now you can see the audience. There you go.
So am I here?
You are here, and you can begin your speech. We can't see you though. So.
Oh, you can't. Okay, so
No,
it's just
you could just click
only
the
audio.
camera emblem.
What's that?
Click the camera emblem.
Oh, I guess maybe.
Emblem. Thank you.
Did I do
Let me
it?
get water right after this.
Can you see me?
Not yet.
Oh, well, I'm not sure what to do here.
Okay, don't worry about it then. You can just speak.
Okay, I'm going to keep it kind of short because it is virtual and I know that doesn't always all that well. I just want to say thank you so much for this honor. I'm really pleased to be able to participate with your group, and I'm really honored. And I just wanted to tell you guys sort of a quick story about how I became the editor of my hometown paper. So, and I'm really going to keep it short again because I think we're just audio here, and I know that's not ideal. So I just wanted to tell you that I was told when I was an up and coming editor in Buffalo that it was very unlikely that the paper would ever have a female editor. You know, people told me that who were in power, and I kind of thought, well, I didn't really want to believe that, but I also knew that it was going to be tough. So I, you know, when the opportunity came up to get the #2 job at my paper, I went for it. And I have to say that that did not make me extremely popular at home with my husband, who was not necessarily fully behind me. And that was a real challenge because we had young kids. So that was really tough, but I was very driven to do it. And I ended up getting that #2 job and finally getting the top job paper, which made history in my hometown. And, you know, it's been a really tough road, I have to say, in a lot of ways personally. And it's also been worth it. And I think the thing that makes it the most worthwhile for me, you know, now that I've been at the New York Times and now the Washington Post, is being able to mentor other women who are having career challenges and also having life challenges. So I just kind of wanted to give you a few words of support. I know everybody has stuff going on that makes it tough. And I just want you to know that you can succeed against the odds, and you shouldn't actually let anybody tell you what you can't do. So thank you very, very much for including me. And I hope you guys have a great day celebrating your womanhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay. That's always the quiet point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Ruby, would you like to give it a go for real this time? With wild gestures. That's the least we expect.
My mother.
Oh, sorry.
So a couple of things that I wanted to, well, first, hi, I'm Ruby Lopez. I'm currently the Director of Local Art Services of Americans for the Arts. Got a bunch of other things I'm going to share, but before I started, I was jotting some things down and everyone else was speaking. So I think it's funny I actually asked why me, and is this like for real? Because I think in a number of different ways, for a number of different reasons, we don't immediately say thank you when we're being acknowledged and recognized and seen, because it's just not the work. The work is what the work is, and we do it in service of the work, and getting recognized isn't always something we think about. So I thought it was funny. I also wanted to share, I was really touched that I was being recognized for the work that I've done in service to art, support of the art. But I too am a poet, and my writing style is varied and broad and sporadic. I like to call them moments of brilliance that happen at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm awake and suddenly I feel a lot of feelings and words start flowing. But one project, recent project that I worked on that was really in particular moving for me was a crowdsourced poem that I worked on in the spring, kind of spring, summer last year. And it was really interesting. It got published recently in an anthology for poetry for high school students. And it was a look back at what you would tell yourself if you were, 15, 16, 17 again. And the prompt that I'd given folks was to reflect on a moment of regret and to give 1, 2, 3 words, no context, no story, didn't need to know if the issue got resolved, didn't need to know any of the context, just give over the regret. And if that was cathartic for you, great. If it just propagate with, okay, I'm sorry. And there was no attribution, there was no, I destroyed the list, I couldn't even tell you where you came from. But the resulting poem really spoke and sang to the things that we missed things that we missed out on, or the things that we reflect back and go, wow, I had done it different. And it was all over the board. It was really amazing. And so the ability to be able to give life and to give release those regrets was really touching. And then I also, about once a year, try to write a blog. It goes on for about 3 months, and then I give up. And so that's been really fun too, just trying to find the different ways to connect and express, and just how writing can really be that moment where you find clarity, or you find connection, or you find inspiration, and where you can pass that to someone and receive that.
Telling your daughter,
Writing has been a long
on this side, but you do it all around.
So officially, forgive me, one thing I forgot to do in the apologies for everything that didn't go the way it was supposed to. I also did not print this out, so I'm on my iPad. So good afternoon, buenas tardes. I am Yo Soy Lucas Harper. I'm honored to be here today to receive this recognition and share with you a little bit about my story, some words to inspire you to be your own style of warrior. These days, when so much of our time and energy is taken up with trying to survive, I take moments like this to remind myself and to share with you a little bit about who I am and what makes me. I was introduced to the work of George Ella Lyon and Julie Lansman during a retreat. George Ella was a Kentucky Poet Laureate and created a project based on her poem, I Am From. This became the I Am From project, and now has become a part of my practice in establishing equality in the room and shedding the coat of titles from a group. With that small introduction, I share this with you. I come from palm trees, sand, sun, and smog. I come from mixed tongue and mestizo sangre, bookmarked with vibrant colors and sounds. I come from Mexican heritage with strong female role models and stern side-eye. I come from religious upbringing to religious questioning and exploration to find my roots in the earth. I come from not knowing my worth and yet knowing I'm worth it. I come from big dreams and little means. I come from Buckeyes, college town, and Midwest sensibilities. I come from doing my best and giving my all. I come from being called the patron saint of artists because I believe in you. I come from doing the work to be inclusive before there was such a normal word for it. I come from wanting to see people like me doing all the things. I come from the DMV where I'm finding my way. I come from my own loving family where 3 sets of tiny arms wait to embrace me when I'm done here, and 1 set of strong arms wait to be my rock when I'm here. I come from humbled and honored to stand before you, to share my stories and wish the best for you as you travel your journey. So I'm not sure if you could guess from any of that, but I grew up in California near Long Beach. I moved to Columbus when I was 28, moved to DC just 3 years ago. I've been a dancer my whole life. I have managed to manifest artistic expression in a number of different ways. That's been a fascinating journey in and of itself. But our stories are so important to tell. From the perspective of being a woman and being a woman of color, in the arts and culture field, we are invisible. Through words and film, we can shed light on not just the usual suspects. Anyone know Frida Kahlo? Yeah, okay. Everybody knows Frida Kahlo, but on the everyday art makers that color our world and tell our stories through their artistic expression. I struggled like every other person struggles to make their way. It wasn't until recently, and embarrassingly so recently, that I realized that the things I called struggles was actually systems designed to disadvantage me. The challenges I faced were not just because I was a woman, but because I was a woman of color. In my family, there was only 1 college graduate when I was growing up. It wasn't my mother, but her older sister. And my family worked hard when I was growing up to give us better. I grew up in a modest home with my own room. I went to a private Catholic elementary school, but when my parents divorced, when I was in school, things changed. My single mom struggled to give us the basics, and suddenly everything was different. I was thankfully accepted, but ended up not attending private high school. I worked hard to make her proud of me, and I chose not to go to formal college when I graduated, mostly because I couldn't afford it, and I had no idea how to navigate to it. And it seemed so far away and out of reach. So instead, I worked for a year, almost became a real estate agent, almost became a dispatcher, almost became a lot of things. And then eventually found my way to community college. I worked and went to school for 6 years to earn a 2-year degree, but I did it. And then I realized that I could make a living working in an office as an assistant because I was amazing at taking care of details and taking care of people. And I did that for 15 years before I ever realized that I was also working in the arts. During that whole time, I taught dance for 7 years, or 7 of those 15 years, to 6 to 12-year-olds, beginner tap, jazz, ballet, and hip hop. And I knew that while I was never going to be famous, I loved giving the gift of self-confidence, pride, and performance. It was in the late 90s that I fell into community theater after I moved, and it was the key to me finally feeling like I had a home. That led to leadership positions in and around Columbus. That led to the discovery that an arts council is a real place with actual jobs that pay enough money to live a life, right? I started out as a part-time coordinator, working half day in one department, half day in another department, eventually worked my way up to director of services. Meanwhile, I'm volunteering nationally and working hyper-locally, and it was a total mind-blown. Over the years, that hunger for learning has served me well. And while I haven't been able to figure it out for myself, I do ask for help. I reach out to friends to reach out to friends. And over the years, each open door I walked through led me closer and closer to the work I'm doing today. I would love to spend the time sharing the ins and outs of how I got to DC. It's interesting, but it isn't what I want to leave you with. It isn't what I want you to remember about me. Trust me that I'm complicated and I've lived a full life and I'm not done yet. And what I want to leave you with today is this. You are enough. You will always be enough. And you don't have to please anyone but yourself, regardless of what people tell you. And sure, you're going to make mistakes and some days are going to kick your ass. But at the end of the day, the God's honest truth is that you can't control what others think or say about you. And when you can let that go, when you can let that not be a thing in your life, when you can let the haters hate, you will find inner peace. That's when you are living your best life. It is being able to live your truth and own your narrative. It is being able to know your worth so deeply that no one else can shake your core. We must live a life of purpose and intentionality, and in that we will find fulfillment. I want to close today with a poem that a mentor shared, and it stays with me, and I speak her into the room today to share with all of you. Thank you, Barbara Schaefer-Bacon, for sharing the poem To Be of Use by Marge Pearson. The people I love the best jump into work head first without dallying in the shallows and swim off with short strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, and who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in and the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Go forth, be of use, and thank you.
Oh, great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just emailing you. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys, our next speaker is going to be Sean Kingston, and she's the director. She is the chair of the Atlanta. I'm gonna get
I was going to do it from now on.
Sean Pinkston, and she is the chair of
Women for Alliance of Women Directors. There we go. And yeah, since everyone's down here. Cool. Film. See, that's. I try to get the West Coast in here.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, let me go sound. There you go. You can introduce yourself better, I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Well, I know I only have 7 minutes. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. You can always go to my website or just call me. I'd love to talk. But hello, ladies. This is such an honor and pleasure. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. So yes, my name is Shawn Pinkston, and I am a filmmaker in the great city of the ATL. I am a true Georgia peach. So yes, ma'am, everybody. I write, direct, and produce my original content. And I graduated from Georgia State University with my BA in film and media just 2 years ago. Yay! So it is never too late. And that is significant for me because although I will not tell you my age, but I will tell you I have a 21-year-old police officer son and a 19-year-old and a 5-year-old. So do the math. So finishing college and getting my degree, I think after, my kids got through school, and then this 5-year-old who happened to pop up, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know what happened. All I know was I had a headache for a long time, went to the doctor, and they said I was pregnant. So surely God and my husband had a plan. They tag teamed me, but we were so delighted. So anyway, I am truly blessed and honored to share with you for 7 minutes. And I thank Jade and Winona and the entire team for bestowing such an honor, and I'm truly grateful. So let's begin. As I was thinking and praying about what to share with you all in such a little time, I do speak, so I usually speak a lot longer. So this was a great challenge. God, I need you to give me something quick and something powerful. And I didn't have to consider it too long. I want to begin by sharing with you one of my original quotes. And some may call it a mantra, but for me, it is one of my lifelines. I live this quote. It is on my email as a tagline. And every new project I begin, those who are working with me hear it quite often. And this quote, it reminds me that I am empowered to create and change my world. And when I say my world being the world that I can see and touch every day, the circumstances that I live in, and the decisions that I am in control to make. That's my world. That is your world. The circumstances that you live in, the world that you touch and live every day that nobody knows but you, that's your world. And so this mantra, this quote reminds me that I have what it takes to create my world every day. And I want to share it with you. And it is my hope that you will be affected by it in a positive way. And I am literally sharing a piece of my life with you, and I'm delighted to do so. So here it is. And if you're writing, if you're a note taker like me, I'd love for you to write it down, and you can call me and we can talk about it later. But here it goes. It's inspiration leads to creation. And you have everything you need to create your world. I want to say it one more time. Inspiration leads to creation. And you have everything you need to create your world. My hope for you is that from this day on, you will choose to live inspired. And I emphasize choose because I want you to take your power back. And it's a message I always share. It is within you, your power. I want to put you back in control of your life. And sometimes every day, it's okay to make that decision to do so. Because those things in our world can sometimes take control and tell us what we ought to be doing rather than us deciding the things that we should do. So now for those of you who happen to believe that our lives are divinely guided, as I do, God still gives you control to choose, to believe, and to pursue. Now, this quote came to me at a time when I was desperate And I know you know the feeling of being desperate. As a woman, we have all been there. When I was desperate for a new life, I was on the verge of divorce. Thankfully, we were able to make it through, and we celebrate 24 years of marriage this year, thank God. But at the time, I was pursuing an acting career, and I was just hitting walls. And the funny thing is, I used to tell God, Lord, I don't understand why you're not letting this happen, because you know when I get famous, I'm going to tell people about you, because until that, who's going to want to hear me tell them about you? So God has a sense of humor. So he didn't let that happen that way. And so I knew I had a calling on my life for ministry and to the arts. But to look at my life then, it was a mess. And I remember sitting at my desk, just staring out the window, telling God that it seemed like my existence was just a waste. And why was I even here? And you know, women, you know the moment when something changes on the inside of you, when you're inspired or enlightened by something. I was enlightened with these words, the entire phrase, and I had to write it down at that moment. Inspiration leads to creation, and you have everything you need to create your world. I wrote it and I kept writing it. Tears were falling. I was writing and reciting, because it had to click. I didn't understand what those words meant. So I kept writing and writing, and I'm crying and crying. And guys, it was the ugly cry. You know what I'm saying? But I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm writing. And all of a sudden, really, literally, it could have been a whole hour, but I just felt a warmth fill me, and hope rose up inside of me, and able. And I hope some of you get this statement the way I'm phrasing it, because I really want you to get it. I was able to believe, because prior to then, no matter who preached to me, who talked to me, no matter what I read, no matter even my best friend, it didn't matter what she said, I wasn't able to believe because of what was in front of me. But at that moment, I was able to believe that what I was currently living was not the truth of who I was or what my destiny would be, that it wasn't over. So I had hope for better days to come. So in better words, I was inspired. And that's what inspiration does for you. So it was on then. At that time, I was like, oh, it's on. And literally, you know, it was like I decided at that moment that I didn't know how things were going to change, but I knew that I wasn't going to live that way anymore. I wasn't going to live in the bondage of my own thinking and lack of belief. And so I will never forget that moment. And I ask God often, don't let me ever tire of telling this story, of remembering that moment, because it was a change in my life. I'll never forget the house we lived in. I'll never forget my desk, and I love that desk. I'll never forget that moment when I felt that I became inspired, listen to this, to engage my life and to finish the course. Now, did things turn around immediately? Of course, absolutely not in the natural, but they did inside me. Yes, they did. And so, of course, it took longer for things to turn around in the natural. But you know what the difference was that I never looked at those things the same. I never looked at the challenge the same. So therefore, my response was different. So as I close, there's so much I can say there, but as I close, I want to leave you with what I had to do in order to live inspired. See, remember, inspiration leads to creation. So therefore, you have to first be inspired. And let me give you the definition of inspired. It is defined as an extraordinary quality, as if arising from some external creative impulse. And part 2 of that definition of inspired is of air or another substance that is breathed in. And I want to highlight the phrase another substance. What is another substance that you can breathe in that will inspire you that will inspire you? And as you live inspired, now you can begin to create your world. That other substance is faith, women. And I will not give credit to anything else. I honestly am able to live inspired even on my most challenging days, because I have faith that helps me see beyond what my natural eyes see. And my faith helps me to speak beyond the words that I would normally want to speak when pain hits my body or a challenge comes. I'm able to speak positive and powerful words regardless of how my flesh feels. And my faith helps me to pursue a career and opportunities that others would say I am not even qualified to pursue, but who cares what others say? So my charge to you is to get up each day, no matter what, and choose to engage your life. Choose to live inspired, not by what you see or feel, but by what you hope for and believe for and are working toward. You are empowered right now to create your world. See, in my world, opportunities find me. In my world, I am preferred above others. In my world, I have sufficiency and all my needs are met. In my world, I get the job and I have the favor. I have success. So now see, I hope you're getting the picture I'm painting for you here, because I'm not conceited at all. I just want you to understand that by faith, I can declare those things. I can declare what I expect, even regardless of what I see with my natural eyes. So I want you to do one thing for me before I get off. I want you to repeat something after me, and you can trust me, ladies. Will you repeat this after me? Yes? Okay, all right, okay. Say, I choose to live inspired by seeing beyond what I see, by speaking words of life, and by pursuing my passions, my hopes, and my dreams. I am in control, and my future is bright. Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Are there any questions for Ms. Pinkston? Oh, she did freeze. I was trying to ask her.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's okay. We can hear her. Okay. Were there any questions for Ms. Pinkston? Yep. No questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Pinkston, for coming and speaking.
Oh, my pleasure. You know where to find me. You can always check out my website, SeanPinkston.com, and I answer my own phone.
Oh, no. I might have to call.
Okay. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you.
We are honored to have one of those last minute fillers. She's amazing. And she's amazing, and she said, yes, I'll come. And she was moving, and she still made time. So, yeah, she's awesome. So this is Ms. Eve. Yes. Ms. Eve Horowitz. And I love her hair, and that's one of the reasons I asked her to speak. And she will do a proper introduction for yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Okay. Whenever I speak, it's always like, when we're going to speak about what's the audience, whatever. And I feel like what's so important today and in general these days is support and community, especially among women. A lot of things are really scary happening in the world. And I want to talk about my experiences and hopefully something that will help. So I'm a combat veteran. I'm a naval flight officer in the E-2 Hawkeye, which is airborne battle space command and control, airborne early warning. We have a dome on the top of our plane, and we were called the Eye in the Sky because we would go out, we would look and see what's going on, and tell the rest of the fleet what's going on. We would control airplanes. I was the mission commander, and I was the only female aviator in my squadron. And I want to talk about a couple of my struggles with that, because the biggest thing I learned from my struggles in the military is persistence. And when we talk about persistence, we hear it a lot, right? It's like, oh, just keep going, keep at it. Well, I think the important thing to remember is that keeping at it could be one little thing at a time, one little step a day. You don't have to be full on hardcore all the time. You want to take a day off and binge Netflix and eat something, but take 5 minutes to read or write something, that can be enough. Like, I think we burn ourselves out with, we have to do this, we have to get things done, and I'm persisting. Look at me persisting, you know, and we have to be gentle with ourselves and give ourselves that self-care. What happened with me is that every step of the way, the Navy tried to tell me I couldn't fly. First, they told me that I was too short, and I was like, I have monkey arms. I know that I can reach anything. So I made them put me in an airplane to make sure that I could reach it. This is in Pensacola. I was about to start flight training, and they said, you can't go aviation. You can't fit in the training plane. And I'm like, there's one right there. Let's go check it out. And they kind of have to at that point because I was already in the flight program. So, of course, I sat in the plane, and I could reach everything, even though they really tried to make it so I couldn't. They're like, okay, fine. They begrudgingly let me in the flight program. I made it through halfway through the flight program, and then they said, no, you can't fly the plane that you can't fly the plane you want to fly because you're too small and you're a woman. And I'm like, okay, where does it say that? So there's something in the Navy called anthropometric measurements. That is the measurements that they gauge to see how you fit in the cockpit, where you can reach and everything. And it's like butt to knee and elbow to wrist. And there's no anthropometric requirement for my aircraft. And they were banking on me not knowing it. They're like, nope, you're anthros, you are NPQ, you're not physically qualified to fit in that airplane because you're anthros. And I did some research and I was like, this plane doesn't have anthropometric requirements. All you need to do is be able to open a hatch. So without getting into boring details, there's 2 hatches in my aircraft. One is above my part of the aircraft and one is above the front. And when you take off and land from the carrier, you have to have the hatch open. Because if you have a ram strike, if you have a mishap and you have the airplane buckles, you can't get out. So you have to have the hatches open so that if something happens and you're taking off or landing from the carrier, you can get out. So they said, well, and I said, all I need to do is reach that hatch. So I know I can reach that hatch. They said, how do you know? Because we're in Pensacola. So I made them fly me up to Norfolk, Virginia to get into the Hawkeyes, into the ECU that I wanted to. And those mother effers put me in 5 different aircraft to try and to see if I could really do it. They were trying to tire me out, basically get me to a point where I couldn't do it. 5 different aircraft, full flight gear, strapped in, and having to reach the thing over and over. And I did it because I was determined. But they will put things in your way. And not only is the persistence there, but the education, right? If I didn't dig down and educate myself about what was really required to fly that plane, I would have just been like, oh, okay, I guess I can't fly. So it's not just persisting, it's getting that details. It's, okay, I want this thing. They're saying I can't do this thing. Let's find out if they're right. And that's why educating girls and women is so important. And and you guys probably know this, it is scientifically proven that when girls and women are educated, when the education of girls and women is put at a priority, civilizations do better, countries do better. In countries where women are leading, they're doing better. Education's better, healthcare is better, infant and maternal mortality rates are better. In America, we're not doing very well. Our infant and maternal mortality rates are those of a developing country. There's 172 countries in the whole world. 3 don't have paid family leave: Papua New Guinea, Suriname, and the United States. Which is one of the reasons why after I left the Navy, I ran for office. So I was active duty for 8 years in the military, and I left as a lieutenant commander, and I'm in the reserves now. I'm a reservist, and I wear a wig in my uniform because you can't have purple hair in uniform. So I'm in the reserves, and I left because I had my daughter. I thought I was going to stay in forever. I'm like, I'm going to be, first female admiral, this and that. And then I had my first daughter, and I'm like, nah. I remember like the day. I remember the day it happened. I was in the glider with her, and she was and I'm like, I think I was nursing her. I looked down, and I'm like, I cannot leave this squishy little face and go deploy. Like, I just couldn't. Something kind of changed. So when my commitment was up, I went to the reserves, and I became a stay-at-home mom. I went from the only female aviator in the squadron on the USS Enterprise to a stay-at-home mom in the middle of nowhere, California, Maryland, Southern Maryland. That was culture shock. That was worse than going to Hong Kong. I mean, oh my God. Like, I'm telling you, going to Hong Kong, I've been around the world, and that was. And I found myself feeling like, I want to have a sign saying I'm a combat veteran. I should be able to get more respect from this. And then I realized I shouldn't have to have a sign. I should get respect just for being a mom. Do you know how many times I heard people say, oh, you're just a stay-at-home mom now? You're just a stay-at-home mom now? And we've all heard that, right? Like, this country does not elevate women and mothers. We have to do it ourselves. And I think that's what's happening now. I think women in general are going, you know what? This freaking patriarchy is just bullshit. Like, it's just not working anymore. Look at what's happened yesterday with the mosque. Like, white supremacy is that, I mean, we have to come together and make people remember that it's about human life and about support and we have to evolve together. We're not living in an evolutionary manner at all. If we keep living like this, we're not going to be here for much longer. So I think it's up to women to kind of wake everybody up, right? There's a lot of people who think they're woke, they're not that woke. So after I left the Navy and I was doing the stay-at-home mom thing, I got really mad at the treatment that I was getting, that women in general got. And women of color, you know this, have it even worse. So I got involved in something called the Milky Way. How many people have Amazon Prime? Yeah, okay. So when you get home, Google the Milky Way breastfeeding documentary. If you're all curious, if you have parents or are a parent, which is all of us, I highly recommend watching it. It's free, and it's about the state of breastfeeding in America and motherhood in America. We're in a bad spot. And that's, at this point, those numbers are like 3 or 4 years old, and it hasn't gotten any better. So the Milky Way, we made the Milky Way documentary about motherhood in America, and then we made a nonprofit called the Milky Way Foundation. And we're making another film. So that's an ongoing project, and I just want to make you guys aware of that. Hopefully you'll watch the film, and I would love to hear your feedback. So send me a text or email. So I got involved with that. I got involved with the fight for paid leave. The Family Act is national paid leave legislation that has been introduced every year for 7 years. And most people don't even know about it because it immediately gets buried in committee because everybody's going, oh, we can't tax businesses like that. I own a business. I happily give paid leave, and a lot of business owners do. It's a myth that it's hard for business or it's going to be bad for business. It's good for business. 4 states have family leave. California is the longest, and they're doing great. The businesses in California, bottom lines are thriving, nobody's losing out, it's great. But people with money don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. So it's up to us to raise that vibration and to say, it's time to put families first, real family values, and that's happening too, we see that. So after the Milky Way Foundation, I was working on a few different political campaigns. I was actually on Bernie's campaign doing social media in Anne Arundel County. And then when the election happened and 2016 hit, I realized that a lot of the excuses I had been giving myself about not running for office suddenly went away. Because I had been asked to run for office a few times, and I thought, I don't know anything about politics. I know I do nonprofit stuff, and I'm military, and I'm a mom, but not so much in politics. Working on campaigns is not so much running for office, you know? I'm like, I don't know, I haven't done this before. And then, you know, Trump got elected with 0 political experience. I'm like, well, all my experience are just out the window. And so I started considering it. But bigger than that for me is, as a military officer, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And after the events of the 2016 election, I saw our Constitution just getting trounced on. I was very concerned about what was happening in our country. So on December 19th, which was the date of the Electoral College, I organized a protest in Annapolis. That was my first Annapolis protest. And my hair was a little longer, and it was all crazy purple fabulousness. And I just showed up on the scene like this weird, crazy purple woman and started railing about what's happening with the Constitution and what was happening with the Electoral College and how Russia, does anybody here have any military or government backgrounds? Like, even if you don't, you probably knew there was something up with Russia 2 years ago. I mean, they've been meddling for a long time. I knew 3 years ago just because of the work that I've done. So I was extremely concerned when we're talking about installing a president who has clear ties to Russia. And more importantly, it's unknown. And what we know, what a lot of people didn't know, is that if there's any question about foreign interference in a presidential election, the Constitution and the Federalist Papers tell us we are supposed to send the decision to the House of Representatives and skip the Electoral College. But a lot of people didn't know that, and they purposely kind of shoved that under the rug. Wow. And a lot of members of the Electoral College didn't know that. And that's part of the problem. So there's so much lack of awareness, of education about that. So that was D19 was actually a national protest. A lot of people about that, and then found out it stopped. So it was a national protest to talk about how this decision was supposed to go to the House of Representatives, and the whole theme was send it to the House. It's hashtag send it to the House, because the House of Representatives, have access to intelligence that the Electoral College members don't. So they couldn't make that decision. But that was just glossed right over, which is what's happening in our own country these days. So I started protesting more and more, and then I organized the Annapolis Women's March in 2017. Mainly because I had a 3-month-old at the time. I have 5 kids, and I've only given birth to 3. We're a blended family. I have 2, my husband has 2, and then we have a 2-year-old together because we're crazy. But my 2-year-old was 3 months old at the time, and I was going to go to DC for the Women's March. And it was just, weather was turning out to be really cold, and I didn't want to bundle her up. I'm like, I'll just go to the Annapolis March. This was the Monday before the march, and I found out there was no Annapolis March. This is when my military training kicked in, and we made Annapolis March in 4 days, and we got 1,600 people there, and it was amazing. And especially in Annapolis, right? It's like you kind of think of that as like stuffy old money, don't care, happy with the patriarchy, you know. And then 1,600 people showed up. We're like, oh, this is amazing. So after that, we formed March on Maryland, which is a nonprofit that is all about First Amendment rights and civic education and civic engagement. And March on Maryland has done a whole bunch of rallies, protests, and kind of civic actions. So we've done all the women's marches. We did March for Racial Justice, Rally for Healthcare, Vigil for Las Vegas, Vigil for the Capitol, and a few others I can't remember. But our most recent women's march, our theme was Coretta Scott King's quote, "Women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe you must become its soul." So I brought this for you ladies to have one each, and then I think I have enough if anybody wants. There's more like online, and I have more if anybody's interested. We have bags, and then we also have Women's Unity March water bottles, and then I have bracelets for everybody. So I do have something for everybody. We have different color bracelets, and when I'm done, I'll put them out that are Women's Unity March bracelets. But what we're trying to do with March on Maryland is give people a place to come to, right? If you're dissatisfied, disenfranchised, feeling underrepresented, frustrated, come to us and we'll help your voice get heard. Maybe that's a rally. Maybe that's going to the General Assembly and speaking to your representative. And we are nonpartisan. This is anybody, regardless of background. We have Trump supporters come and help, ask us for help, and that's fine, because it's not about a person. It's about us as a community, and it's about everybody feeling engaged and activated and important and heard. And we don't have that, right? We don't have that. A lot of people don't feel heard or engaged or respected. So, sorry, this all ended up being a little more circular than I sorry, you guys are wonderful. I just feel like I just want to keep going. But so where we're at now. So this has actually been kind of. So where we're at now is, it's time for a new religion of love, so to speak. It's time to elevate love and empathy and kindness as a strength, and that tends to be a feminine strength, and that's okay. You know, in the past, in our lives, it's been men are tough and women are soft and kind. That's kind of the paradigm that exists. Well, what's been happening is that we haven't really allowed men to be kind and soft or women to be tough without making it hard for them. So we have to stop kind of the gender boxes and really talk about how people can help each other get along in the world. So look for something called the Order of Love. That's the next thing down the pike, which is essentially finding the common thread in all organized religion, which is generally love. And some people say God is love, but a lot of people don't really relate to God. So we need something that people can all relate to and everybody can relate to love, even if you think it's cheesy or you think it's hippie-ish. So the Order of Love is coming down the pike, and it's going to be something where it'll give a church for people who don't have churches. I've been seeing so many people that get support from their church, people in bad places, they get meals and clothing, and the community comes together and rallies around them. Churches, if you don't have a church, you don't have a community sometimes. If you have a community without a church, that's lovely, but where's the organization? Organized religion is powerful. And when we talk about power in our country right now, power is organized money and organized people. So if we can organize money and organize people together for love, that's what the Order of Love is. So that's coming down the pike. And I think that's everything. And I don't know if there's any questions. I was like, I know this question. I don't think so, only because what happened, my kids, during the last election, so we came very close. We got 47% of the vote in the red district, which is really powerful. And there's a lot of reasons why I think we didn't win, but I'm more and more glad we didn't, I think, because we're still getting the word out in different ways. And I think I can have more of an impact right now but my kids were like every day, oh, you're going again, you know, we miss you. And I'm like, when the election's done, I'll be all right. And now the election's done and we're moving to be closer to my kids' school. We live in Annapolis, my kids go to school in Florida. We've been driving between Annapolis and Rockville every other week. Every other, but still every other. So we just finally had to move close to their school, which is taking me out of the Anne Arundel County equation. If I ran, it would be in Montgomery County. I'm kind of new there. Like, we're just gonna put down roots, see what happens. 2022, we'll see, maybe 2024. I mean, I'm open to it, but right now we're doing so much with March On, especially. We are marchon.org, by the way. It's another website. If you haven't heard of March On, it's a national organization that is not affiliated with Women's March Inc. We are 15 sister march organizers from around the world. So LA, Chicago, DC, New York, Toronto, Oklahoma, all the big marches. The organizers came together to make March On to kind of continue the effort in a real radically inclusive kind of way. And I'm on the board of March On National, so I feel like I can kind of do more with that too, also while I build a presence in Montgomery County. Plus, anybody I run against in Montgomery County is like my friend. So I can't run against Jamie Raskin because he's my mentor. I can't run against David Boone because I love that guy. Something would have to shift anyway. So, but I'm open to it. Well, it's funny you say that. So my current long-term plan, if I don't run, is basically do the Trump way. Just get really rich and famous and then run. It's a cult of personality now. Why not? And by the time I get there, I'll be even more successful because the business is doing well, but now we're really gonna explode in no time. So we're gonna put more into the business and more into this. And my goal is just to get really rich and famous. Oh, I'm the QuickBooks Badass, qbbadass.com. I'm a certified QuickBooks Pro advisor. You guys know QuickBooks. I've been doing QuickBooks for 25 years, and I'm just kind of a numbers nerd, so I like doing it. So that's what we do, QuickBooks for anybody and everybody. We have 100 clients, and I love it. And we're going to keep expanding. She's one of my clients. That's Rashida. And we're expanding. And I think that honestly, the route to power now is still money. It's still money, and it's still influence, and it's still popularity. So if I get rich and popular, I'm just going to run like you did. Why not? So that's the long-term plan, or I'll run regular. We'll see.
I'm off for my
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you please stay for Oh, did you need to? I've seen you give last minute speeches, and when I called, I was like, I'm the first person to say yes to me.
Thank you.
Mer Lafferty, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, awesome. We have what I think is going to be next to our last speaker, and then I'm going to read poetry because I know you guys just want to hear that, right? Yeah. So I'm moving you guys. I'm moving you back over so you can see the audience and they can hear you. Voila. Mer Lafferty is a podcaster Hall of Fame. Are you the first one that's literary?
They don't really have sections like that. So if they just chose like a bunch of us who were there at the beginning. So the two writers that were first inducted were me and Scott Stigler.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop doing introduction for you and let you do it for yourself. So Miss Lafferty,
Okay.
take the floor.
Okay. My name is Mer Lafferty, and I am a podcaster and writer and science fiction editor. I got my start in 2004 when I always wanted to be a writer. I got my start in 2004 when I started podcasting and kind of built my career on those two things together. So podcasting sounded like an interesting thing to do, and it was a new frontier, and it was exciting. And the interesting thing about starting something new is that you don't know a lot about it, you don't know how to succeed, and you don't know how to fail. So you can be hurt since you don't know how to succeed, but when you don't know enough to fail, you usually don't quit, and which I didn't. I experimented with so many different things. I experimented with episodic storytelling, nonfiction essay writing, audio dramas, collaboration with others. I released my very first novel via podcast in 2007. Some of them landed and some of them didn't. And I didn't care. I just kept creating. Some people think that having no one to watch you when you're starting something is bad. No one's noticing your efforts. No one cares. But I try to think about the phrase dance like no one's watching, because when no one was watching or listening in those early days, I could create whatever I wanted to, and there was no pressure, and I didn't care. But that's didn't care in a good way, not didn't care as in didn't really care about what I was creating. But there was no pressure. It was just freedom. And I have a friend who says that the only writers that don't succeed are the ones who quit. I know people who've had great talent in writing and act. Those two stand out, former friends of mine, and they were amazing, but they quit when they hit a little bit of hardship. And I know people with less quote unquote talent who are actually still having a career because they they just kept going. And determination, I think, builds more careers than talent. Have I failed along the way? Of course I have. And I've learned to treat failure as a gift. So the way I look at it is if you're walking a tightrope, you're learning to walk on a tightrope. It's 6 inches off the ground. You walk a few steps, you fall off, you walk a few more. And then when you get good at that, you raise it and you go again. And you learn a number of things about balance, and foot placement, but you also learn how to fall and you learn how to get up and you can learn how to keep going. And think about the absolute terror you would have if you never fell until you got about 100 feet up. So I was watching a cooking reality show. I think it was, I want to say Zumba, but that's the dance. It's the one from Australia. It's the baking one from Australia. So when the chefs compete against each other, they choose the best, and then they choose the worst two to compete one more time, and then the loser leaves the show. And one woman had won. What? You've seen that one?
Yeah.
So one woman had won several of the competitions. I mean, not won like the whole thing, but she'd been top in several of the episodes. And then the first challenge, where she was clearly struggling, she lost her shit. She was in tears. And this was the first competition of the episode. So she wasn't leaving at the end. She would just have to do it again. And you'd think, well, okay, so I had one bad cake that I baked. I'll do better next time. No, she was unhinged. And she was in tears. She realized her dish was failing. And I looked at my kid and I said, that woman needs to learn to fail. So you can't learn to succeed until you learn how to fail. I've been rejected harshly. I've had comments come back by an editor who liked to edit while he was high, and really all of his filters were gone at that point. And some of his comments were quite honest. And I've created shows that failed, wrote books that were ignored. And the further along in my get, the bigger the success is and the farther I have to fall. But since I've failed before, I was ready for it. The weird thing is I also had to learn to seed. Many people, specifically women, have it drilled into their heads to downplay their accomplishments, to be demure, to say, oh, I was just lucky. The idea of achieving something and saying, hey, I did this awesome thing. It's like most of us would rather eat a live spider than let those words come out of our mouths. But it's not egotistical to accept your triumphs. The jerk is the person who says, hey, I'm better than you. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm pretty great. I've achieved something. And what I'm great at is failing, but I do still struggle with success, admittedly. This paragraph was very hard for me to write. In 2015, I was admitted into the Podcaster Hall of Fame. Last year, my novel was nominated for several awards. I won a major award for my podcasting, and I wrote a book in the Star Wars universe. It's still hard for me to say those things when people mention how awesome my career is going, but it is awesome, and I did it. And I know many of you have come through a place of hardship to be here today, and you've already overcome things, much rejection slip or hate mail from a reader. Personally, I come from a family with mental illness, and I was diagnosed with depression in 2004, which was the year I started podcasting and writing for real. I'd always wanted to be a writer, but I didn't actually start pursuing it until around that time. I grew my creative wings the year that I was diagnosed, and I got depression. One of the worst lies in the world is how you must suffer for your art. Can great art come from suffering? Of course. Do you need suffering for art? No. There was a myth started years ago about how all antidepressants killed your creative urges, and creators with mental illness should just suffer and get inspiration from the mental illness instead of seek treatment. So I got my diagnosis in early November 2004 and went on antidepressants. By December, I had the creative energy to start podcasting, return to my writing, and if that's not cause and effect, I don't know what is. So there are two sayings I like to think about. One is the thing flight attendants say, put your own mask on before you help anybody else. This is because when the oxygen's getting thin, if you can't breathe, you won't be able to help anybody else breathe. So if you try to help your kid first and then you faint before their mask is on, you're both going to faint. If you think you don't have time to care for your needs because of a job or family or other priorities, remember that if you stop breathing, you can't help anybody else. You can't do anything else. And the second saying is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Which, if you think about it, is the same thing. I was a stay-at-home mom in 2004-year-old who was really trying my patience. I didn't grow up babysitting. This was my first real experience with an infant and then a toddler, and it was really getting to be too much for me. But then I got treatment for depression, and I noticed a change in her behavior as I started to feel better, because she got her signals from me that things were improving. I don't even know what it was. It was just weird that as I started to feel better, I knew it was easier to be with her, and she was acting better as well. So I guess what I want to leave you with is starting to create, writing, podcasting, vlogging, painting, whatever. It's scary. We fear failure. We fear success. We fear people not paying attention to us. And then when they pay attention to us, that's scary too. We worry that our new focus will hurt the other parts of our life. But I've found a lot of fulfillment in following my creativity, which has strengthened my relationships with my family. And you need to accept your successes with grace and be grateful for failures as their lessons. And you can learn more and deal with bigger failures down the road if you know how to fail now. And always put your own mask on first, because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And that's all I have for you today. But questions or anything you want me to elaborate on?
Thank you for including that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't have any gifts for you today because but I would if I could. I really would.
All right. Thank you, Miss Lafferty.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi. So, we're going to do a quick, first of all, I should probably tell you who we are at some point. I just recognized I hadn't done this. I'm Winona and she's Jade.
Hi.
We're from two of the members of the band I thought we write books. They're around here somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, the purple one is ours. The other one's is somebody else. And we also do the magazine, the 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artists, and Advocates, a literary magazine. We start on the docu-series Just Right in Life and Amazon. Don't watch season 1 because it sucks.
It does. It's horrible. It was a steep learning curve.
So I'll tell you the quick story. So one day I called my producer in Hollywood and said, yeah, we don't do writers because they're boring. And I was like, I thought I was cool with that. This was the first conference. And then 7 days later, I was still pissed. So I said, let me do something about that. So I called my manager and I told her I wanted a television show. She called me back at 2 o'clock and she said, you got it. You just need an entire season and I need it in 30 days. And yeah, I couldn't, since you're just coming into the business, I couldn't get you all the executive producers and everything. You'll have to do it yourself. So 30 days we shot 4 months worth of footage.
Wow.
So it sucks. Because we didn't know what we were doing.
We were putting it together in iMovie. We were just like, okay, y'all. And we told everyone, don't watch it, but if you do watch it, you get paid. Don't watch it, all right? Because the gang in there for a season, we should be over. So only 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
So you got 2 more to wait, and you might be like, we're amazing. Just right in life.
Just right in life. If you guys want to be on it, you know, let her know. Shoot it with an iPhone. Anyway.
Yeah, totally.
So we're gonna make you something.
Yes, we are.
That's what we are. Yeah.
Go for it.
We would like to apply for.
Oh, right. I forgot that part. Your opening is Misfit Guides.
You see, we are misfits.
We are misfits that created our own map to success, crooked footprints and all, broken heel and all.
A photographer is a person who needs snaps. Starting a new journey is both sorrow and hope displayed one step at a time. A traveler may be walking, running, crawling, or flying, but is what is left behind that is in the rear. Destiny beckons them to find an inner light to put someplace new.
Old college try. Book studying and getting down to business, putting on a little chubbiness. Classes, friends, choosing to study, learning how to define me, frat sororities, and the occasional party. Experiencing college freely. Boyfriends, girlfriends, learning boys from them and them. I met you with the wavy hair and the great eyes. Now my friends say you can't love him. A compliment shouldn't make you cry. I have no answer, but I know I'll give this the old college try. To study, accomplishment, I have no answer, sorry. To you, I study to become unsmart, but this is the matter of the heart. To my friends, you don't understand. It's me, not the man. If I correct what's wrong, he'll see clearly. Then he can love the improved. I'm trying to explain to y'all what makes good sense. Stop trying to make this a relationship tense. Y'all are relationship tense. Y'all's flaws.
Stop pretending if you don't see the flaws.
I've never met this woman.
Flaws.
Stop acting like you don't see the flaws. I'm tired of your pretense. I know how to improve. The ball is in my court. It's my move. Study harder. You'll see I'm not stupid. Stop looking for other men. He's the best offering for you. Have fake hair just a little longer. I can't forget the eyelashes. Have a rounder booty that looks like acorn squashes. I need to plump my lips and fill out my hips. For my eyebrows, I'll buy black or dye. He doesn't control me. I'm giving it the old college try. My grades are slipping and I don't know why. I sit alone at night waiting to cry. I know you don't hit me, but somehow I feel you lie. I toy with the idea of trying to die. I exist on this earth. For what? For why? I'm not good enough for any reward in the sky. You aren't abusive, that I'll animately deny. But when you speak your words, they sting like lie. At my dorm in wait, you lie. You tell me I'm so pretty, then unpretty. As you note the females as they walk by, I failed again, with an inner sigh. I promise you, I'm giving it a better old college try. See, I drink water, I lose weight, yes, just like that. But you point it out, just like that. I don't see the fact, but you do. I make sure to do extra study, but I never learn supposedly. I ask, what else could be wrong with me? My college try is, oh, so meagerly. You don't seem to notice the true me. Now you have your master's degree and a wife that wants more and she cheats, steals, and lies. I say to you, give her the old college try.
Man, we thought being grown up would be easier. We learned that we had to lay a base again and again, that losing footing doesn't necessarily mean falling. Independence begins when understanding your definition of freedom begins. And deciding whether to sacrifice or to stand up for the unknown to achieve your own emancipation.
First, introductions. Do you wonder when it was that you met the world? I mean, really met the world. When did the world stick out its hand and say, hello? Were there awkward stares in the elevator until someone broke the silence on a 21-floor ride? What happened to the traditional sit down, chat, or the cordial, nice to meet you too? I mean, before it came from my college dreams or asked for money I just did not have. Did it have the courtesy to say, hi, my name is World, and you are? Yes, before the IRS stamped me with a number. Why didn't I get introduced before you asked for yours?
A traveler respects all of those who have worn the path before them, worn the path of smoothness to our late, and below. No.
Oh, yeah. I don't like that one.
Change
the reading. I was getting into my like death mode one. Like, get some little boxes. Paper money in your hand means so much. I have no abundance of such a resource. I have no money, So I give to you a devoted mother in the church of your life. Your proper upbringing is my religion. Your dreams are my beliefs. And the long hours at work to co-workers are my prayers. But this work, instead of money, 4 quarters equals $1, but I have only 3. I can't give you $1 for the vending machine soda in school so you can fit in with the cool kids. But I give to you extra time after 2 jobs reading books to keep you up with your schoolwork, an extra class at home to stay just 1 step ahead of those who have the tutors, an archaeologist digging through government programs and red tape so your space camp this summer can be free. I give to you a pillar to climb on, to kick, and to frustration to stand on, and not to worry about it falling. Will this do as you ask? Will it be enough? I have no credit for the college loan, but I have just a little hope left in that jar. Looks like those prayers, they turned into clothes and field trips, but I hit my knees just 1 more time, and I rise with just 1 more job. You can go to that state college, and with that scholarship, you can stay on campus. See, I am married to the idea of your education. I will dress you in all the fineries, and I feel hand-stitched, and you will parade down the aisle of the lecture room with all new books. You will hear every holy vow from those lecturers' lips. And swear to me to remain on the pathway to success, never adulterating it with foolishness. I have no say, but with a partner. I have no money, but with a phone call and tell them to at home with the truth. I have a job, Mom, but we will have to meet too. I have it all, but I can't give it to you. So take this change, though, for the tears of the days I forgot, the days you remembered, the time that will pass with your absence. I will keep all your gifts, because I can't throw this stone. I understand.
With the movement of those who lost, we move forward with them, traveling places.
I swear to y'all, this one's my favorite. Hobbling, wobbling, stumbling, or bumbling with a purse, so swinging, singing, laughing, swerving, and chattering in a chorus. The strides in perfection, one-sided and lopsided. The heels are pumps, but the memories are stilettos. Skyscrapers of beauty, particles of sound, the breeze beneath the palm. May I say, dare I say, this life is proud. If you can afford it, it's in demand. The places you can go on a broken heel with your friends for a steal, bewildered, awed, and overwhelmed, while holding the world on its axis, 1 shoulder at a time, praying that these hopes can carry you through just 1 more stop. But oh, peace on 1 good evening and 2 awesome friends. Almost done. Swear.
We are. A photographer is a person who creates maps.
The human brain has been described by many scientists as the most complex structure in the known universe. Mapping its estimated trillions of synapses is a task that would likely leave even the most experienced photographer crumpled on the ground, forced to look defeat square in the eye. I have spent a lifetime as that photographer, tracing the ins and outs of my psyche in a search for who I am and who I want to be. The older I get and the more answers I find, the more I realize that maybe there are no answers, or that perhaps the answers lies within the simple act of mapping itself, and leading me to infinity. Who were you yesterday? Is she the same person that you are today? Does she look the same? Does she feel the same? Does she act the same? Who are you today? How does it feel to walk in the skin you wear just right now? At once know that you're the oldest you've ever been and the youngest you've ever been. A lifetime of experience on the path behind you and the sheer vastness of infinity on the path back. Like an endless highway stretching out in both directions into life's sunset and into its sunrise. The bright light, the effervescence of the sunset. So much left to do. So much left to experience. Now, can you imagine who you'll be tomorrow?
Thank you for letting us apply to be witness with that.
Thank you guys for coming out. Yeah, especially today.